2.5 years ago, Chris was happy. He was a husband in love and a proud father. He had a beautiful family. Abby was the love of his life. He still found her stunning after 13 years of marriage. His son, Connor, was a very handsome boy, tall for his age and intelligent. His teachers praised him for being an excellent writer, although he overlooked a lot of spelling mistakes. One night, when Chris was at a crime scene, Abby and Connor were downtown at the River Center Mall, a popular tourist trap on San Antonio's famous Riverwalk. They liked to see all the sights downtown at night. It was best when they were all together. As they wrapped up the evening and were walking back to their SUV in the parking garage, two thugs approached them with automatic pistols drawn. Thug number one said, "Yo, we want the keys and the purse now." Connor immediately attempted to step in between the thug and his mother. Thug number two immediately pointed his silver 9mm at Abby. He knew this would get his attention and would likely stop him from doing anything else foolish. Thug number one also pointed his pistol at Abby, who was now crying and pleading with the thugs not to hurt them. Connor said, "My dad's a cop. Leave us alone." His father had taught him how to fight. He had practiced disarming a handgun hundreds of times. He was confident he could do it. However, there were two guns aimed at his mother's head. This he had not practiced, nor could Chris had prepared him for this particular scenario. He was helpless. "Mom, give them the keys and purse and they'll leave," Connor said in as calm as a tone he could muster. Thug number two walked over and turned the gun on Connor so that Abby would comply, while thug number one still pointed his gun at Abby. She gave the car keys to thug number one slowly. He grabbed them out of her hand. He then pulled the purse away from her hand. "Thanks, bitch. Now you stay put," thug number one told Abby as he began to walk towards his partner. Thug number two pulled his pistol away from Connor, pushing him over towards his mother. The first thug unlocked the SUV and they both got in. As it started up, thug number one, who was driving, rolled down his window as he backed out. But before shifting into drive, he said, "Hey, you said your dad's a cop? What's his name?" "I'm not telling you," Connor said loudly. The driver then pointed his gun at Abby and told him, "You better tell me or I'll shoot your mama." Connor was hesitant, but wasn't going to let them shoot his mother. "Chris Priest?" The driver had a surprised look on his face, then turned to his partner and said, "Hey, this wife and kid of that Detective Priest, day one who testified against Tiny in court?" He turned back to Connor and Abby and yelled, "Yo, my brother is on death row, 'cause yo bitch-ass daddy testified against him in court. We're sorry. Please don't kill us." Abby managed to get out, despite the fact she was now crying heavily. The thug looked at her and said, "Not as sorry as he gonna be," and fired 2 shots into Abby's torso. Connor yelled and went down to aid his mother, who had fallen in front of him. As he looked up at the shooter, he focused on him with nothing but anger and hatred in his eyes. As he began to rise up to rush in at the car, the driver fired 2 more shots and hit Connor in the neck and forehead, dropping him instantly. Abby screamed out Connor's name with what little life she had left, and the thugs shifted into drive and sped away, fleeing the parking garage. In her final moments, Abby sobbed as she pulled her dying body towards Connor's lifeless body. When the police found them, Abby was lying next to Connor, with her left arm around him, and her lips red from kissing his face, which was covered in blood. This is when Chris's world had ended, when he lost that spark. The SUV was recovered 3 days later on the day of the funeral. It had been recovered in the bust of a local chop shop. It was swept for DNA. Nothing was found. Chief Mills sent Chris home on paid leave. He told Chris to take as much time as he needed. His job would be waiting for him when he got back. Chris spent the first 2 months becoming familiar with his new friends, Jim Beam, Jack Daniels, Gilt, and Crown Royal. Every day, the feeling in his gut worsened, dragging him down. He wanted to die to join them, but he still had something to do first. The hope of tracking down these things was his only reason for sticking around. Anyone who has ever fallen in deep with the companion alcohol knows how difficult he is to leave. It was in the 3rd month that Chief Mills had begun to really worry about Chris. 2 months he could understand, but 3, and no word from Chris, he decided to go and check in on him. When he arrived at Chris's house, the yard needed cutting and the trees needed trimming. It just didn't have the same life it once did. Mills knew the old trick of placing your hand on the front door to tell the energy in the home and of its inhabitants. As he placed his right hand on the door, Mills heard a thump and what sounded like someone struggling inside. Banging on the door, he shouted, "Chris, it's Chief Mills! Open up!" Nothing followed. He banged again on the door as the struggling sounds grew louder. "Chris, I'm coming in!" He then reared back and sent his right foot into the door handle, opening the locked door. Inside, Chris was struggling with a noose around his neck. He was hanging from the high support beam, which was 11 feet off the ground. Chris had tried to kill himself, and the chief had gotten there just in time to do something. Chris's eyes met with the chief's for just a split second when Mills pulled out his pocket knife, flipped it open, and swiped at the rope with one good swipe. Since the rope was thick, it took him climbing up on the small stepladder and sawing at the rope to cut Chris down. When he finally hit the floor, Mills kicked aside the stepladder and kneeled down to Chris, shouting, "Chris! Chris!" He loosened the noose from around Chris's neck and threw it aside. Chris's color began to return as he lay there, gasping for breath, holding his neck. Mills just sat there next to him, catching his breath with Chris. "Priest, what in the fuck were you thinking?" Mills asked him with an angry tone. Chris, still trying to catch his breath, couldn't answer just yet. He reached over, pulling Chris up by the back of the arms, and said, "Come on, let's sit you up." The chief had convinced Chris to check into a rehab facility for 1 month. He would appoint someone from the department to handle Chris's finances that he had fallen behind on, and to hire a team of maids to clean the house as well as a landscaping service to take care of his yard. When Chris returned a month later, focused on doing his job, everything was taken care of. His yard was in great shape, his house was clean, his clothes washed and ironed, his bills all caught up on. When Mills contacted Abby's family, he learned of the sheriff's heart attack and was now recovering. He didn't bother asking them to help Chris. Chris was one of them. He was a San Antonio police detective. He was family, and this family took care of their own. Chris returned to work shortly after leaving the rehab facility. He was determined to stay on the force, at least long enough to do what he had sworn an oath to do: find the scumbags who murdered his wife and son, arrest them, and make sure they suffer behind bars until the day they die. Death by Chris's hand was too easy. They must suffer to their last breath. Chris could make that happen. What he would do after they were caught and prosecuted was uncertain. He still drank, but confined it to the privacy of his own home. Knowing full well he couldn't stay in that house anymore, he sold it and moved downtown to the Camino Real apartment building we have come to know and cringe at upon hearing about. There are no solid leads in the case. The security footage of the incident was blurry and likely could not be used in court. As of now, the suspects have yet to be identified. The piercing noise of the police sirens arriving awoke Chris, who was now in complete darkness. His .45 was not in his hand, and neither was the small mag light. He tried to use the technique of looking around an object in the dark to see it. Still, his eyes could not adjust to see. His vision was blurred. Then he remembered Michael. He called out loudly in a deep, broken voice, "Michael! Where are you, Mikey?" Silence. As he listened for any sign of life, the door from which he entered was pushed open to the police shouting, "SAPD!" "I'm here," Chris shouted from the floor, deciding it was best he stay put so he doesn't get shot. "Detective Chris Priest." "Is that you?" An officer shouted in the dark as the rooms were cleared by the other responding officers. "Yes, it's me, guys, over here," he answered. "Chris, it's me, Davidson." "Davidson, over here, man," Chris said, feeling weak. About 8 flashlights moved in the dark towards him, like a theater spotlight. On the stage now was Chris, whose hands and clothes were now blood-stained, which was revealed to him and everyone else in the light. Chris jumped back in horror as he called out, "Mike! Find Mike Rodriguez!" "Ah, shit!" one cop shouted. 2 more flashlights moved over to where that came from. "Davidson!" "What is it?" Chris yelled. "Oh my God," Davidson said, just loud enough for Chris to hear. In the spotlight was Michael's headless body lying on the hard ground. Blood-covered trench coat, service pistol missing. He had the killer's calling card on his left forearm. It was a web link to a pasta written by the killer. It was called Michael's car was also missing from outside where it was parked earlier. "Oh, God, Michael!" Chris yelled as he broke down, sobbing as he rushed over on his hands and knees to where Michael lay lifeless. The response unit immediately pointed their guns and flashlights at Chris, yelling, "Chris, down on the ground now!" 3 beefy cops rushed over to him, placing his hands behind his back, cuffing him. Michael's cell began to ring. Everyone was quiet. Davidson walked over to Michael's corpse and fished into his coat pocket, pulling out his cell phone. "Unknown number," he said. He decided to answer it on speaker.
"Hello?
Detective Priest, please."
Who the fuck is this? Why are you calling Detective Rodriguez's phone?"
Put Priest on the phone.
"You motherfucker, you're dead."
Wrong detective. I've never felt more alive.
"I'm gonna find you."
No, you won't. Not unless I want you to. You're all like worms on a big hook, just waiting to be eaten.
"You sick son of a bitch." "Why, Michael? Why not me?"
Because I want to watch you suffer. Because I want you weak when I come for you.
"You're a fucking coward. Face me like a man, you fucking pussy."
Oh, what? And end the fun already? You and I will meet soon. First, I have a few things to do.
"You are so dead, you piece of shit."
Goodbye, detective. See you soon.
"Uncuff him," Davidson ordered the other officers. "I'm sorry, Chris. You know as well as I do it was standard protocol." "Yeah, whatever. Just send a unit over to Michael's place. Someone has to tell Carol. And Chloe Marks stays with me until this fucker's caught," Chris ordered. Just then, Chief Mills made his way inside the building, making his way to the scene. "Oh my God! Somebody cover him up!" he shouted to the responders. Chris met him halfway, saying, "Chief, we need to put Mike's family in protective custody. Ms. Marks should stay with me." "Now, Chris, we'll take care of Rodriguez's family. But Ms. Marks needs to be in protective custody as well," Mills said, trying to talk some sense into Chris. Chris shook his head, disagreeing. "Sir, with all due respect, she can still help me catch him. You want me to allow Ms. Marks to remain with you in your custody while you go on a revenge spree. I just heard about the call between you and the killer. At least in protective custody, we can keep her out of harm's way while we catch him," Mills said, hoping Chris will see the logic. Chris looked around at everybody, then at Michael, shaking his head. "He even took his head. How are we going to tell Carol that a serial killer decapitated her husband and left with his head?" "Chris, she's coming with us." That's just how it is, son, Mills said. Chris was angry, but respected the chief's order. He knew he could see things with a clear head. Priest, there's something else. DNA results came back from the lab less than an hour ago. We know who he is. We got him, Mills said with a satisfied look. We know exactly who he is. We got a last-minute warrant from the DA. It just came in. SWAT is geared up and en route. Now, are you okay? Do you need to go to the hospital? He asked. No, sir, I'm fine, Chris answered immediately. That's what I thought. You ride with me. We'll worry about your car later. Chris looked over at Michael and asked the chief, Sir, give me a second to say goodbye to him. Mills nodded his head. Sure. I'll be waiting by the door. Chris walked back over to his partner and kneeled down next to him and said, I'm sorry, Michael. I'll look after Carol and the kids. We're gonna get him. I promise. I love you, my friend. With that, Chris stood up and made his way over to the chief. Somebody give Priest a gun, he ordered. Davidson walked up to them and handed Chris his sidearm, handle first. Thanks, man. I'll get this back to you later, Chris thanked him. Davidson nodded and said, Just get the son of a bitch. Chief Mills and Michael raced through the downtown streets, making the chief's Mercedes engine work overtime. The sound of police sirens echoed in the night as flashing red and blue lights reflected off old buildings in the wet city streets. Chris stared out of the front windshield and asked the chief, So, who is he? Mills, focusing on driving, answered. His name is Frederick Hazen, 34 years old, recently divorced, no kids. He works as a computer programmer for ACS. That explains how he was able to reroute the IP address to Canada, Chris said, shaking his head as he turned toward the passenger window. Mills just nodded. Tell me something, Chris. Why do you think he singled you out to screw with? Mills asked. Chris thought about it for a moment. I think it's a power thing. Mike and I had this theory that the killer was somebody weak, mentally or physically. He was probably some kind of nerd, someone of high intellect, but lacked the physical prowess to be intimidating. Likely why he went after the elderly. I'm guessing he hid in Michael's car and held him at gunpoint. There's no way he would have survived a fight with Michael, so he shot him first, likely from a distance too great for Michael to disarm him. I think he saw me and thought that if he could break me mentally, he might have an easier time breaking me physically. You know, sort of the David and Goliath complex. This would be a confidence booster for him. Chief Mills looked at Chris for a moment, then back to the road. Yeah. Well, the boys in lockup are gonna break him physically and mentally. Chris nodded, knowing this fact. It brought a slight smirk to his face for just a moment. As much as he wanted to see him dead, by his own hand at that, he knew Hazen would likely suffer once he was in county jail before being sentenced to death row, where he would be in isolation. Hell, maybe he would still kill him anyway. As they arrived at the apartment building where Hazen lived, SWAT was everywhere. Snipers were on the roof of the building across the street, and every entrance and exit of the building was covered. The squad leader, Brian Menendez, had already ordered the evacuation of all the residents of the building while covering the door and windows of Hazen's apartment, preventing his escape. The building was empty now except for Hazen's apartment, which was now surrounded by heavily armed cops in black armor. Now all that was left was the go-ahead order from the chief. When Chief Mills and Chris arrived, they parked across the street, where all of the building's residents waited outside in the cold, damp night air. Menendez approached Mills for a briefing. Sir, the building has been swept, except for Hazen's place. I have a team up there awaiting orders. We're ready on your command. Mills asked Menendez, "Do we know if he's even in there?" "No, sir, we haven't checked as of yet," he answered. Mills looked over at Chris, who was still blood-stained and eager to get this monster. Mills looked back at Menendez, nodding. "Okay, let's get this son of a bitch." "Roger that, sir. And Chris, I'm sorry about Mike." He patted Chris on the shoulder. All Chris could manage to do was nod and say, "Yeah." Menendez pressed the talk button on his radio. "Okay, men, Chief says go." "Roger that, sir," the team leader responded, looking at the armored men behind him. "Okay. You heard him? We go in on my count. On one, ready, 3, 2, 1. Outside, the air was tense. Everyone was on edge, anxious for what would transpire in mere seconds. A SWAT member holding a battering ram reared back and breached the door wide open. Just then, a loud, fiery explosion rocked the apartment building, shattering windows and killing all of the SWAT officers inside. Glass flew in every direction, hitting everyone in proximity of the blast. Screams from the street echoed in the cold night air as chaos reared its ugly head. Hazen had booby-trapped his apartment. He was expecting them to find out his identity when that cat clawed him. Others would have taken the cat anyway. Deep down thought, he wanted the public to know just who he was. He wanted all those bullies, over the course of his life, to shudder with fear when they saw his picture and heard his name on the news. All of you know me, and I know all of you. I'm that kid that was bullied by the stronger kids in school. Last picked for team sports. Never had the nerve to ask a girl out then. What girlfriends and wife I did have as an adult were all lying, cheating whores. I was always the underdog. However, God decided to bestow upon me the gift of intellect, not confidence. This was something I would need to learn on my own. As of late, I have. Who really misses the elderly anyway? They are a burden to society. They serve no purpose except to remind us of our own mortality. The lesson here is to enjoy your life while you're still young, before you end up a sad, old, wrinkled-up, lonely mess who everybody wants to ignore. If you don't die young, this will be your fate. Who really wants to live forever anyway? Too many of my kind have been humiliated, broken, and driven to suicide throughout history. All because we didn't have athletic ability, charm, good looks, or were just different. And what has society always done to those who are different? They ridicule them, they berate them, they chastise them, and banish them. Our lives are a living hell in comparison to the rest of the normal people. I believe there is something extraordinary about us. If we could just tap into that hidden part of ourselves, we could overcome all the stereotypes, the bullying, the making to feel like something less than human. I can tell those 3 detectives have never had to experience this. The big, intense one, Detective Chris Priest, is part of the problem. It's obvious he was a bully, a master of humiliating people like me. I now have him at my mercy. I've killed his neighbor. I've killed his partner, another douchebag. His head will make a nice gift to his wife. I'll mail it in the morning, just as I'll mail Detective Priest the head of somebody else close to him. If I do not complete my opus, my message will still live on. Don't bully those who are different than you. We have had enough. We should all get along live together in harmony and love. So you see, I'm not doing this because I'm evil. I'm doing this in the spirit of love and peace. Surely you can relate. Upon being treated at the scene for minor cuts, Chief Mills and Chris left the old Buttercrust Bakery to drop Chris off. The coroner already transported Michael's body to the morgue, and the rest of the investigators were getting ready to leave. They had all gotten wind of the explosion minutes earlier and would make their way to the scene for assistance upon leaving. Chris would not. "Now, are you sure you're okay to drive?" Mills asked Chris from his car. Chris was now barely standing in front of his window, weak, dehydrated, exhausted mentally and physically from the day. "And you thought your day was bad?" "Yeah, I'll be fine," Chris managed to say. "Chris, go home and sleep. You've had a long day, son. I'll come by in the morning on my way to the station," Mills reassured him. "Okay, good night, sir," Chris said as he tapped the top of Mills' car, sending him off. As exhausted as he was, Chris would not go home and rest. He wasn't sure where to start his search for Hazen. He could be anywhere. He made a promise to himself and to Abby and Connor that hunting down and killing Frederick Hazen would be his final act on this earth. Then he would join them in the hereafter. First, he would call Chloe one last time, just to say goodbye.
Hello, Chris?
"Hey, how are you?"
Shit, Chris. I've been just out of my mind. I can't believe Michael's gone. I've been so worried about you.
"Yeah, don't worry about me, dear. I'm tough. Are they treating you well where you're at?"
Yeah, they cool. This sucks, though, not being there in the middle of the action. Hey, where are you right now?
"Sitting in my car, getting ready to go home. Gonna get drunk and get some sleep." Chloe laughs and sniffles in the background. "Listen, I want you to do me a huge favor. Write a story about me, so I can live on forever, and a scary pasta." Laughs.
Yeah. What would you like me to call it?
"I'm sure you'll think something really cool. Promise me you'll do it."
Okay, I promise. Chris,
"Yeah?
nothing. Just get some rest.
I will. You too. Good night, Chloe Marks."
Okay. Good night, Chris Priest.
Chris placed his phone on the passenger seat and started up Miss Sunshine. He realized he would need a real gun. He pulled the gear shift into overdrive and raced home to retrieve his own guns. 2 agency-issued .40 caliber semi-automatic Glocks he referred to as Thing 1 and Thing 2. As he drove past all the old downtown buildings, he imagined his family waiting for him. Graceful, eager to finally be reunited with him. "Almost there, guys. Just one last thing to do, then I'm coming home," he said as Miss Sunshine's engine roared. He was really burning the midnight oil tonight. He was 0 for 12 with the fallen SWAT officers, now part of the body count. On a night like tonight, what else is there to do? He would grab his guns, then search at Chloe's place, Michael's place, his place, and Hazen's place. He would wait for Hazen to rear his head. Today was the day Chris would send him to hell in a handbasket. He was also looking forward to the afterlife with them. What little spark was left was just enough to carry out this one last act of good. Click, click. "Hello, Detective. Good to finally meet you," Hazen said with a smile as he pressed Chris's .45 to the back of Chris's head. "Motherfucker," Chris said in a calm but angry tone. "I ought to reach back there and take that gun and shove it up your ass, you piece of shit." Hazen smiled and said, "Try it." "Are you quick enough? Do you think you can pull your hands off the wheel, reach back behind your head, and grab the .45, redirect it, and manage to pull it free from my hands all before I squeeze the trigger? If so, then you must have been dropped on your head as a baby." Chris now angrily looked into the rear view, saying, "Fuck you! You know you killed 7 SWAT officers back there. You're a goddamn coward. Yeah, sneaking into people's cars, waiting for them to get in and drive. I know that's how you got Michael. You pussy." Hazen was now getting agitated at Chris's words. "Coward? Pussy? Bitch, I'm a fucking hero." "Yeah, keep telling yourself that, you pathetic little boy," Chris shouted. "Oh, what? Am I raising up your Irish there, Freddy? You getting a little miffed? You little bitch?" Hazen was now pulled in by Chris's taunting, angry, no longer in control. Listen, we'll see how tough you are when I gut your little friend, Chloe Marks, and Mikey's wife and kids. Was it Carol, Ava, and Mickey? Not today, you motherfucker, Chris said with intent as he accelerated at a high rate of speed. His speed grew faster and faster as he reached an alleyway. Hazen grew nervous as Chris turned down the alley, accelerating. "Stop the car or I'll shoot!" he yelled. Miss Sunshine was now going 60 miles an hour and moving closer and closer to the brick wall at the end of the alley. Chris was now smiling and focused straight ahead. "Shoot! You're dead either way! I have on my seatbelt, bitch!" Hazen was now screaming and covering his eyes. "No, please." Chris was now smiling and laughing. "This is for Michael." The impact sent Frederick Hazen through Miss Sunshine's windshield and head first into the brick wall. His head popped like a balloon. Most of his bones were also broken in the impact. He would just be a lump of flesh lying on the hood of a badass muscle car down an alleyway. Chris, on the other hand, was wearing a seatbelt. Though he was still breathing, he had internal bleeding, broken bones in his arms and legs, not to mention a broken collarbone and several ribs. As he sat there, clinging to life, he remembered the promise he made to Abby and Connor. He smiled and asked himself in the famous words of The Clash, "Should I stay, or should I rock the Casbah? Fade to fucking black."